Hello and welcome to Mary's Nutrition Show, coming to you live from Seattle, Washington. Our mission here is to help you look better, feel better, and live better one meal at a time. This is the gut health episode, Fermentation, Probiotics, and how to make your gut happier. Now, here's your host, integrative, registered dietitian, Mary Purdy.
Well, hello, everybody. Mary Purdy here, coming to you live from Seattle, where I am just swimming in bacteria, which is a good thing. Good thing. I would like to introduce my husband and videographer and producer of the show, Keith Hitchcock, behind the camera of Hocus Pocus Media.
Hello, nice to see you all. You can't see me, but I can see you.
I can see him just fine, and he's also swimming in bacteria, which is a good thing. And speaking of bacteria, today's topic is going to be about gut health. And you are going to want to stick around because I'm going to be talking about how things that are happening in your gut are critical for things happening in your brain. So if you've got mood issues, you definitely want to stay tuned.
Theme music. Bow, 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 bow.
Consult your doctor, please, before taking any recommendations from today's show. And do know that anything I speak about today isn't necessarily a reflection of the policies of any of the organizations with which I associate. Thank you.
Hey, please join the conversation today. If you are watching live, there's a chat right to the right of the window for questions and comments. If you're watching the recorded show, there's a comment section under the YouTube video. And we do try to respond to each and every comment and question that you throw our way. So give it your best shot. FYI, there will be a Q&A section later. So if you have things coming up...
Are things already coming up? What's happening?
I just noticed what Scott wrote. He said, the theme music is slightly adult.
Oh, is it? Gosh, we got to work on that.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Good point. Very good point.
Yes.
One other intro.
Yes.
Who is this?
This, my friends, is Jasmine. Quick story, long story short, rather. Had surgery, hand surgery. Everything's fine. Things are healing. So, thank you. And what was that? What was that, Jasmine? Oh, you have another friend you'd like to introduce? Well, let's see who this friend is. Hey, it's Bifidobacteria. Why, thank you for bringing Bifidobacteria on the show. We'll be talking about Bifido and perhaps even two Bifidobacteria later on, so stick around.
Okay, nice to see you, Bifida and Jasmine. Jasmine
Yes.
with a new friend. That's lovely. Mm-hmm. Last week's weekly challenge, what was it?
Last week's weekly challenge was to try out 3 different nuts that you have not tried in 3 months. How did it go?
How did it go? Scott or anyone else watching, did you accept our challenge and try some different nuts and or seeds? We would love to hear about it, if so. Sally dropped us a line.
Yes, she did.
To tell us about her experience with the nut and seed challenge.
Thank you, Sally.
She went for Brazil nuts and couldn't find them.
Sometimes they're hard to find.
Keep
looking.
Where can you find them?
Very often they're in the bulk section of a store or a health food store. You might want to start there. They aren't necessarily the most common nuts, so you might need to look a little deeper.
Okay. She says, I like salted pistachios better than raw. Mm-hmm. All pistachios break my fingernails to get inside.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, that is the hardship of pistachios. The good thing about that is that it slows people down when they're eating nuts, which is a good thing because it's really easy to shove a bunch of nuts into your mouth. And so the shelling actually makes you take a little time with it.
Oh, man, I was just going to going to suggest buying the de-shelled pistachios, which I've seen out there before.
They're there, but why not give yourself a challenge? And it helps to make your fingers more nimble. Maybe cut your fingernails, and that will help.
Hey, there's some other folks that have been telling us about their experience.
Oh, good.
Scott says, yes, he had filberts.
Filberts, otherwise known as hazelnuts.
Oh,
and they are actually...
synonym.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
They are native to this area in Seattle. There's a crazy hazelnut woman at the farmer's market who tries to convince me every time I go to eat more hazelnuts.
Scott also tried pine nuts.
Ooh, expensive.
Nice work, Scott. And
Excellent.
Nancy says sesame and chia seeds in our salad this evening.
Hey, that's fabulous. You're going to have some good digestive fodder going on, which we'll talk more about later.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for telling us how that went, accepting the weekly challenge. And I think now we're going on to the main part of the show.
All right. The main part of the show is talking about gut health and probiotics. So, point number 1. What is the deal with all of the bacteria in our body? Interesting to note. Did you know that we have 10 times the amount of bacterial cells than we do have human cells?
What?
10 times the
No,
amount.
that's
I am
impossible.
Serious. It's true. It's about 3 or 4 pounds, actually, that's of bacteria on your body.
Really?
Yeah. And some people call them bacteria. Some people call it flora. Some people call it, gut bugs. Some people call it the microbiome. But interesting to note, there are 300 trillion cells of 300 bacterial cells in your guts. That's a lot.
What's a microbiome? Sorry.
Microbiome, so glad you asked, is the collection of the bacteria that lives in your guts.
Oh, like it's entire. It's a biome.
It's the biome. It's the genes of the bacteria, and it's the bacteria themselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking. Are you ready to move on to point number 2? Whoa. The question is, what's the big deal? Why do we need these bacteria? Well, they are absolutely essential for human health. Not only do bacteria they don't just sit around all day, they actually do things in our guts. So they're not just absorbing and helping to digest our nutrients, they are working on our metabolism. They are creating vitamins. They are helping with our immune system. They actually create anti-inflammatory compounds to help protect us. And lastly, they play a huge role in the production of neurotransmitters. Those are those brain chemicals like serotonin and dopamine that make you feel good and calm. So there's a huge connection between the gut and the brain. They are very, very essential to human life. And interestingly enough, the studies do show a huge connection between people who have chronic diseases and who have a less diverse or robust internal ecosystem. So the more diverse number of species of probiotics or bacteria in your gut, the more resilient you are against disease. So it's critical that you get enough in there and you keep enough in there.
You are reminding me of the times that I have taken an antibiotic
Yes.
for some, sickness or whatever, and you stressing the importance of like, all right, we got to get some probiotics back in there. And it's just so, it's so hard, the fact that I'm taking an antibiotic to make myself better, but then
Right.
I'm hurting the other parts
Well,
of
the
me.
antibiotic is there to kill the bad bugs. We call those pathogens. But in as a byproduct of that, as a result, a side effect, they're also killing the good bugs. So we got to
dang.
replenish. If you're taking antibiotics, we need the good bugs back in the guts. Which brings me to point number 3. How do we make that happen? Well, bugs, like you and me, like to eat. And they need nourishment in order to survive and to thrive and to make sure that the bad bugs or those pathogens do not overtake the gut, which is never a good thing. We don't want those pathogens. We want them out of there. So they need food like fiber. Another endorsement for fiber in our diets, check out our fiber episode. These are things like our nuts, our seeds. Hey, nuts and seeds. Our fruits, our vegetables, our grains, our beans. Those help to feed us. And specifically, there are certain kinds of fiber called prebiotics. What do you think those do?
It happens before something.
Yes, they are food for the probiotics. So these are things like they're in bananas, they're in chicory, they're in dandelion, they're in something called Jerusalem artichokes, maple syrup. They are necessary for the probiotics to survive. But also, we can eat probiotic-rich foods. Imagine that.
Like what?
Well, you probably are familiar with one because people eat it quite a lot, and that is yogurt. Now, this happens to be dairy yogurt, but there are also probiotic-rich non-dairy yogurts as well, like coconut yogurt. So if you are vegan or if you are not so keen on the dairy, you can try those. They are rich with probiotics to help provide additional support to your gut.
Hold on. I'm a big fan of the yogurt that you just held up because
Okay.
I just bought that today.
Well, it was still cold in my hand. It just came out of the fridge.
Well, that's generally where you store the yogurt.
That's true. It's important to keep it there.
But coconut yogurt?
Yes, there is coconut yogurt and coconut kefir, which is a more of a beverage-like of yogurt. And you can add, basically, you're fermenting the yogurt with a bacterial culture.
Huh.
So, yeah. So feel free, if you are dairy free, to try a coconut yogurt or coconut kefir.
Okay. What else?
Well, the dairy, the yogurt piece is something that is very common, but I want to broaden and expand your knowledge of fermented foods. Now, many people think of fermented foods as perhaps a fermented beverage. Perhaps you enjoyed a beer or some cider or things like that and had a lovely evening enjoying that. But there are also foods that are fermented. And we're thinking of things like sauerkraut and kimchi and miso. Those are things that are fermented naturally.
See, hold on. What is fermentation?
Good question. Fermentation is actually the conversion of carbohydrates into alcohol, enjoy, or into acids. So it's a natural process that can happen. And I wanted to talk about some foods that are naturally fermented. I'm going to call out 3 amazing companies that are local here to the Seattle area that produce fermented veggies and beverages. Number 1, Firefly Kitchen. They make amazing sauerkrauts. They don't just make sauerkraut with cabbage. They make fermented beets and fermented carrots and fermented kale. Ugh, stop my beating heart. And then there is Iggy's. They also make krauts or sauerkrauts, but this is a ginger beet kvass, which is a fermented beverage made from beets with a little hint of ginger. And it gives you a nice kick. Great support to digestion. Wonderful way to start your day if you're looking for a little something different. And then lastly, this company is called Brits. They also make sauerkraut, but this is Kimchi Sauce. So kimchi, which is fermented cabbage and garlic and all other kinds of veggies, can be pretty flavorful and sometimes really can be a bit of an assault to the palate.
Oh man, I tried that stuff. That was spicy.
You liked it though.
I did.
It was good.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna put that on
Everything?
everything.
Okay, good. I mean, it's pretty tasty, and you can try it out on some eggs or what did we have it on just the other day? I think I put it like in a dip of sorts. It was just I made a hummus with it. That's what it was. It was so good.
Just FYI,
Yeah.
Mary loves these companies. They are not sponsors. We are not being paid to talk about them. We're just huge fans.
This is our sponsor, actually.
Sponsored by this
Sponsored
carrot.
by this carrot. You might be wondering though, it's not just about veggies.
Yeah. What are there other? Oh, soy.
Yes. I mean, soy technically is a vegetable, I guess,
Yeah.
because it's a plant food, it's a bean. But there are some soy products that are fermented.
Yes.
Number 1, again, I'm calling out a company here, but not necessarily, endorsing it. But this is tempeh. Tempeh is fermented soybeans made into a patty. Fantastic replacement for meat and super delicious on a tempeh Reuben sandwich or a tempeh stir fry. Really rich with probiotics, really high in fiber, really high in protein. And then there's miso. So you may be familiar with miso from where? Japanese restaurants, miso soup.
Oh yeah.
Super delicious.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
You got more?
Well, I was just gonna say that's one of the things somebody that they just give it to you at the
they
beginning
give
of a meal. They
Yeah.
bring you some miso soup.
The beginning of a meal because it helps to inspire the digestive fire to start working, to make sure that you got enough probiotics in there to start breaking stuff down, creating some vitamins, getting some neurotransmitter action happening,
Yeah.
But miso soup is not the only way that you can enjoy miso. One thing that I have been doing for years, and this is one of my treats sometimes after dinner.
Oh, she eats this all the time.
I do. I can't get
It's
enough
ridiculous.
of this. I'm never sick of it. It's like bananas. I am never
man.
sick of them. Prebiotics. But I make a little spread with miso paste, some kind of nut butter. Hello, nuts. Almond butter, maybe tahini, and then a bit of honey. Sometimes I will just literally eat that out of the jar on a spoon. It is amazing. But this is a spread that I put on a slice of toast. Absolutely delicious. So,
Yeah. Chew.
creative way to make miso a part of your life without necessarily cooking it. Because once you cook miso, you are destroying those bacteria. So we want to keep it real light. Voila.
So many ideas here, different types of fermentation.
Yes.
I know that someone is going to have this question because I had this question, so let's get to it.
Okay.
The fermented alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
the questions are going to come pouring in like, hey, fermentation is good. So should I increase my alcohol intake, the fermented alcohol, like beer?
That is a good question. I mean, I'm going to say that is something that needs to be discussed with a professional that you're working with. I'm not going to be an advocate for drinking tons and tons of alcohol to help with your gut microbiome. But a small amount will provide some fermented goodness. Although you have to remember that there are certain fermented beverages that then get heated to high heats. So in order to pasteurize those beverages, and then as soon as any kind of fermented beverage is pasteurized or heated to high heats, those bacteria are destroyed. So that's why kombucha is known to be a raw drink. And kombucha is a fermented beverage as well, which is quite spendy, but very, very popular right now.
Kombucha.
Kombucha.
Oh, yeah. Do you want to do your kombucha song? Hold on.
Oh.
This, by the
I
way,
have a kombucha
it turns
song?
out we're in the Q&A section.
Oh, yes,
so,
we are.
What questions are coming up around fermentation and probiotics? Ask away, and we will try to answer as many of those as we can right now. I think I had another question. Oh, yeah. Are you done with the Iggy's ginger beet kvass?
Yes, would you like to drink it
Can
right
I have
now?
some? Yeah.
Please, go
Okay.
ahead. I want your gut bugs
gonna
flourishing and thriving by the end of the night.
And this is not so much a question. Maybe it is.
Yes.
Scott writes, my Korean-American husband is trying to make me eat kimchi.
And
Well, I said it's not a question, but it sounds like you could make it into a question.
I would say, yay! Trying to make you eat kimchi, like, go for it. Embrace it. It will probably bring you closer together, and it will help develop a rich biome in your gut that will be very, very beneficial to your health. So onward.
I bet it will do things to your relationship as well.
And hey, if you ever come out to Seattle, you can have some kimchi sauce with us.
Question from Karedwin.
Yes.
My friend makes kombucha. There is such a thing as drinking too much of it, right?
I would believe so. I mean, the thing to know about kombucha, it is actually alcoholic. Not a ton, but it does have a small percentage of alcohol. And remember, I mean, taking too many probiotics or having too much bacteria in your gut can produce gas.
Ooh.
Because too many bugs in there, they're eating your food, and the way that they do that and metabolize your food is by producing gas. That's what gas is. It's your gut bugs actually eating your food. So for sure, it's good to be mindful about kombucha. I wouldn't ever have more than about 16 ounces at tops. Yes.
So does gas actually, is that a indication that I'm on the right track with, if I have a certain amount of gas?
I mean, it's a normal byproduct of your microbiome doing its job.
Interesting.
Yes. I didn't realize we were going to be talking about gas on the show, but
Well,
it's a very natural occurrence.
It's very natural,
Yes.
and it comes up.
It does.
And yeah.
And sometimes it can be uncomfortable. So that's why we want to be careful about how much fiber you have or how many probiotics you take or bacteria you have living in your guts.
Question, I think this is going to come up as well.
Yes.
Supplements.
Yes. I'm so glad you asked. It is really hard to determine whether supplements are 100% effective because number one, they've been hanging out for a while and it's hard to know if those cultures or the probiotic species that were originally in that small little pill are actually still alive. Now, I will tell you, in my clinical experience, I have had great success with many a client taking probiotics to help them with various conditions. And specifically, hello, bifidobacteria. There are supplements that contain bifidobacteria that are very, very beneficial for people with digestive issues, specifically diarrhea, traveler's diarrhea, things like that, people who have inflammatory bowel diseases. Bifidobacteria has been shown in some of the research to be potentially beneficial. So I think it can be a really helpful part of your medical management, but it's good to check with someone who knows what they're talking about and can recommend a high quality brand, and it needs to be in sufficient amounts and it needs to be refrigerated.
Hey, one other question here around soy.
Yeah.
Caridwin asks, I've heard some rumors that soy isn't healthy for us and that it might lend to Alzheimer's in men. what's your take on soy in its different forms?
I am always going to be an advocate for soy in its least processed forms and in its fermented forms, because that is what helps it make it easier to digest and break down. So for many people, when they have soy in either a very processed form, like, soy chicken or something like that, the benefits that come from soy are completely gone from things that are highly, highly processed. And so the fermentation actually helps to make the nutrients of the soy product more available to the body. We call that bioavailable. Bio meaning body or life. Available meaning available.
Available to my life.
Yes.
Okay.
Great questions. Wow, you guys are thinkers.
Good stuff.
I'm impressed.
Very impressed.
You're all going to be taking over this show pretty soon.
They'll have these spin-off episodes and doing their own nutrition shows pretty soon.
And I have not heard anything about soy causing Alzheimer's. I have not seen that association in the research. So I would question that statement. But I'm going to look it up, see what I find.
If you have a study, Caredwin, send it our way. We'll take a look at it.
We love studies.
Can you recap what we learned today?
Oh my gosh, that's a lot. I feel like we talked a lot today. Basically, the microbiome is hanging out in your gut, a collection of microbes, bacteria, essential for many, many systems, very influential to our health. And we can make our guts more resilient, more diverse by consuming lots of fiber, prebiotics, and probiotic-rich foods, including fermented foods.
Like yogurt.
And tempeh.
And this
sauerkraut.
Beet kvass.
Which I would like a sip of right now. I'm so thirsty.
I bet you want some of that miso toast stuff.
I do,
too.
But it was hard to eat and talk at the same time. I'll eat it afterwards. I'm very excited about
Mary,
that.
what is the weekly challenge?
Yes, the weekly challenge, you might find this surprising, is to eat a fermented food. And tell us about it.
That's it?
That's it. Simple.
That sounds so easy.
I know, but there's a million choices, but many people do not eat any fermented foods at all. Eat one that you've never tried before and let us know how it goes.
Now we're talking.
Thank you.
Yeah, eat one you haven't eaten before.
That's
or
right.
At least in the past month or maybe 2017.
And if you don't have the $3.95 to spend on a kombucha, email me and I will give you my recipe for my Kombucha, which is about $3.50 cheaper than a typical kombucha in the store.
You're giving away your secret recipe to Kombucha?
Of course. This is my community. These are my people. That's what I do.
Hey, if you appreciated the show today, you can help us out by subscribing to the Mary Purdy YouTube channel. And let us know what nutrition-related topic you want to hear about. Go to marypurdy.com. That's MaryPurdy.co. And you'll find a question and comment form there. So thank you for joining us today. Thanks for your question. Thank you, Mary, for all your info and inspiration. Ew. Oh, next week, people will definitely want to join in. This is a little bit different.
It is. Inspired by some of the political fallout from the past week. Next week's episode will be Eating for Sustainability, Mary's Climate Accord.
Ooh.
Find out how you can reduce your carbon footprint by the foods that you eat.
It's here every Tuesday night, 6 p.m. Pacific and 9 p.m. Eastern. We will see you next week.
See you next week. Thanks for tuning in.
And now we're going to roll the credits. This show was produced by Keith Hitchcock and Hocus Pocus Media with the assistance of Jasmine and Bifida.
Bifida. And also, this show is intended for information and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to replace or substitute professional medical advice or care and should not be used for diagnosing or treating a health problem or disease. Please consult your physician before following any advice contained here or refer yourself to a registered dietitian. Shout out to my profession, yo. Thank you. And never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have learned associated with this show. The opinions expressed on the show are those exclusively of Mary Purdy, that is myself, as well as the producers of the show, that guy over here, who I'm married to, and do not necessarily represent the views or policies of Aravel, Dietitians in Integrative and Functional Medicine, or Bastyr. Thank you.
Ba-dum-bum, ba-dum, ba-dum,